Much for stopping by the Digital Creator Daily. If you're new here, I'm Rob from Hey Summit, and this is the daily-ish show where I get to have some awesome conversations with brilliant people doing interesting things. We talk about the creator mindset, staying authentic, assembling your toolkit, exploring platforms, and a whole lot more. It's a pretty relaxed show about and for creators, thought leaders, and independent entrepreneurs, and of course, event organizers. And just a reminder, a conversation is best when it's shared. So however you're tuning in, whether it's live today or on the podcast, please feel free to jump in with your thoughts, your questions, your perspectives. And thanks again for spending just a bit of time with us. I'm really happy to welcome Jared Christensen to the show. Jared is the CEO and founder of Audience Republic, an all-in-one marketing platform for events, both physical and virtual, to help sell more tickets. Their platform works with all types of events, including more than 300 music festivals globally, concerts including artists featuring Elton John, Post Malone, and Childish Gambino, and a whole bunch more. Sports events, they've done worked with those, including UFC, lots of conferences and conventions. What is the phrase? More money than you could shake a stick at, whatever it is. They've raised over $3 million and have a team of 18 across the US, the UK, and in Sydney in Australia. Jared, thanks so much for taking some time to chat with me today.
Yeah, great to be here.
So I know that you, we were talking earlier, like you started life in the music industry, which whenever I meet someone and they're like, oh yeah, I come from the music industry, I think, oh my gosh, it's a wonder that you survived. but how did you go from working in, first off, I guess, how did you get started with working with events? Why events? And how did you go from organizing music concerts and music related events to realizing that something like Audience Republic needed to exist?
Totally, yeah. Well, I mean, it actually got started. I haven't really told this story before, but it actually got started as me working on physical events. I was like a lighting operator, and it was like my dream job to bands, DJs, and do all the lights. So I was doing that from when I was like, I think 16, working on music festivals and concerts. You know, Kanye West, Christina Aguilera, Rihanna, all those different types of concerts, and just started it off literally just pushing the boxes and started actually then setting up the lights and then operating the lights for some of these music festivals. And that was kind of my dream job as a 16, 17-year-old. That's what I wanted to do.
Nice.
But then kind of got sick of working on other people's events, and I was like, I'm going to do my own music event. And I was about 18 at the time, and this is back in 2009. And the first artist I booked was an artist from Italy called the Bloody Beetroots, and they were just completely not well known at all at that time. And just out of pure luck, from when I announced the show, they just became massively popular, completely sold out. I think it was 3,000 tickets. I was 18 years old, made more money than I could have imagined on just that one show. And so I thought, if I just do 10 of these events every single year, I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to retire, and that's going to be it. And you can probably see where this is going. And a lot of event organizers, you know, particularly physical events, you know, will have this whole experience of losing money on an event. And that's exactly what happened. I made every mistake you can possibly make. Just paid too much for the artist. Then I had to overprice the tickets, and just didn't sell enough tickets. But did about 25 events over the space of about 3 years. Some did really well, some didn't. And really that's kind of where I got started. And I was looking at all the ticketing platforms out there, and I was like, that looks easy. You know, they're taking no risk at all. How hard can it be? And so I looked into kind of starting a ticketing platform. And long story short, decided not to do that. It's actually not that easy. And also there's a whole bunch of other things that complicate it more. But really the hard part that I found when I was running the events was how to actually get people to buy the tickets. And so that's really what I focused on. And that's where Audience Republic came from, is how do we actually get people to buy those tickets through our all-in-one marketing platform.
So I think it's fascinating, like listening to you, because I think especially a lot of event organizers certainly do have that problem of, like, when it comes down to it, you know, you have this brilliant idea, you have these wonderful speakers, you have this wonderful, you know, program. Every single person bubbling under is terrified of the fact that, will anybody show up? Will anybody buy tickets? Will anybody come? And I can't imagine what that's like from an in-person event perspective in terms of you putting up all this money for, in order to get something going, which I guess, which we can definitely talk about. But why did you feel like it kind of sounds like a very big problem that you're willing to take on, if you're saying I'm actually just focusing on how to get more bums on seats, especially when you're working with maybe first time event organizers or events that hadn't existed before, or not going through like the trial by fire of having a failure so that you know what to do well next time. What kind of came into your mind to say, yeah, that's a challenge that I want to take on. That's something I want to try and focus. Because I think in some ways, yeah, you say that it's hard to create a ticketing startup, ticketing business, but it's also hard to say, yeah, you have a problem getting bums on seats. We can help you solve that. That's a pretty big ask, or a pretty high bar to maybe meet, and sounds a bit intimidating. So what kind of went into the decision of like, yeah, that's not only something that I know is needed, it's also something I want to do.
Totally. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, there were all these ticketing platforms out there doing a great job. And there weren't any platforms out there that could actually do what I wanted them to do for me, which is get tickets sold. And then I was also looking at all these other kind of platforms that were starting to pop up. I moved away from kind of the event space for a little while. Worked for Red Bull for a little bit, worked for a few kind of B2B SaaS companies and technology. And I had all these different kind of products that were specifically tailored to the industry, like HubSpot and products like that. And they were fantastic products. And there weren't any designed specifically for events. And so with the kind of whole experience of actually running those events myself, I knew that there was definitely a gap there, and just had that experience of losing that money on that event, and that was definitely a pretty compelling reason to start the business. And so that's what I did, and so started the business in 2016, and we've been going ever since.
Awesome. So I guess the title of our chat today is talking about over-reliance on social. And so I guess in that, you certainly have an opinion about how people are over-reliant on social. Can you talk a little bit more about why people default to thinking that social media is this kind of panacea, this way of engaging, and what's better? Like what's the
Totally.
alternative?
Totally. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was amazing for a while. I mean, I know even in back in 2009 when I was running my events, I think the cost per click on Facebook was like 3 cents or something crazy like that. It was outrageous, and you still had the organic reach back then. And what we've kind of noticed, ever since pretty much 2018, that Facebook algorithm changed, which really affected organic reach. And what that meant was that effectively all your organic traffic you didn't really get anymore, and you had to pay for. And ever since we've seen that happen, we've also seen the cost per click keep going up and up and up with so much competition out there. And so it was a very easy trap to kind of fall into. It was delivering great results for a whole bunch of different event organizers, and people really just got addicted to it. And really kind of just ignored all the other channels because it was the most effective channel. But what we're finding is that those followers that you're kind of building up on social media, whether that's on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or whichever other social platform, they actually don't belong to you. They belong to the social platforms, and they're not forever. And so it's a massive risk as a business to just be relying on those platforms. And so for us, we're really focused on how do you actually own your audience. So you own that audience, and you're not over-reliant on any one social platform. So you can own that audience and reach that audience directly. And that helps you future-proof your business as an event, but it also helps you reduce your paid advertising costs as well, because you don't have to continue spending so much money on paid advertising. And so that's really the kind of core belief of us as a business, is that owning your data is one of the most important ways to drive sales.
So when you're talking to maybe first-time event organizers or event organizers that maybe haven't had a huge amount of success with social, maybe just because they haven't been around for a while, what do you suggest they start with versus maybe spending all of their their budget on Facebook ads or trying to grow that social media audience? What's an
Yeah,
alternative?
well, I mean, specifically for smaller events, we've done a whole bunch of smaller events for Audience Republic where it's been, 2, 3, 400 people. And the thing that I found that was actually most successful for me in getting people to actually attend those events was actually not even worrying about Facebook or Instagram or any social platform. It was actually just reaching out to people directly and asking them if they wanted to come to the event, telling them a little bit about the event. Particularly people who are in my network. So we did something called the Music Tech Summit in partnership with Universal Music and Eventbrite. And literally, I just emailed every single person in the industry, anyone who was connected to on LinkedIn. I messaged, just added a whole bunch of connections on LinkedIn and just messaged them directly and asked if they wanted to come to the event. We had, I think, about 400 people who came along to the event. It was a super curated audience of our customers and potential customers. And we had a wait list of about 300 people who wanted to come, but we just didn't have enough space for. So I would actually probably say, don't worry about so much, the social channels. If you're just starting out, I would kind of actually just reach out to them directly. And then from that gave us an email list, which then we could just then send an email out to all the previous attendees. And then the kind of social media stuff came after that.
I think one of the points that you raised there, and that's something that we talk about a lot, is also just suitability of the event itself to the audience is far more important than trying to yell to as many people as you want. Like if you're trying to build something for everyone, you end up serving no one. But if you're able to build a very clear proposition as to why you would want to attend this event, it makes it so much easier not only to get great speakers and to have a great schedule because it's so targeted, but you have to do a lot less work trying to sell it if you know exactly why someone would want to attend in the first place. I think this is a common thing, especially with like smaller scale event organizers running events. You might be thinking, well, I need to get 100,000 people to come, versus I need to focus on getting 500 people to come. I think that the goals here are sometimes lost in this idea that I have to be bigger, I have to be as big as possible, I have to be broad as possible, my church needs to be as wide as possible. But you end up then not getting anywhere near the number of people or the amount of engagement that you would if you were just focused, initially.
Totally. And we work with, some of the biggest events in the world, a lot of music festivals and concerts, 50, 60,000 people. And all the events that we talk to, they didn't actually start out that way. They were the events that actually started off the smallest. It's always the events that start off and try and go massive straight away. Those are the ones that kind of fizzle out. They lose a whole bunch of money. It's not really sustainable. Yeah. It's actually the events that are the most enduring and end up being the largest events that generally the events that started off the smallest. So yeah, definitely an interesting thing that we've seen across some of our larger customers.
So do you I always love knowing what people, especially who are really in this space, see happen all the time that really frustrate you. Like maybe you see someone launching an event and you can tell what they're about to do, and you don't think it's going to work. Are there like common mistakes or missteps that you see happen, especially with like first-time event organizers or maybe smaller scale event organizers, that that you'd encourage people maybe not to fall down that particular rabbit hole?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously one of the most important ones and one of the reasons why we started the business is just that data ownership piece. Definitely, even still in 2021, we see a lot of event organizers still aren't really recognizing just the importance of actually owning their audience. So that's definitely one. I think another one, if we're taking it specific to virtual events, is people have so many things happening in their lives. And one of the things that we've found is actually reminding people to actually attend an online event. And one of the channels that we've found actually super effective at this is text message. SMS for us has been a huge channel, particularly over the last kind of 12 to 24 months. And so sending out a text message, when the live stream is starting, to actually remind people and make it easy for them to send out a link to that live stream. And that's one thing that we found super helpful. Actually, you've done all this work of getting them to sign up. You may as well make the extra effort to actually get them to kind of sign up and register. So I think mostly it's around missed opportunities. And event organizers are so busy. They're not just doing the marketing; they are doing the operations, the logistics, and in many cases, the kind of marketing piece is an afterthought. So I think also just make it easier on yourself. Use those platforms that kind of help automate those kind of manual, repetitive tasks. So one of the things that we kind of really focus on around automation is automatic integration with advertising platforms, so we can automatically sync segments to Facebook custom audiences. So that's been a really good kind of time saver, because a lot of our customers have been just manually uploading CSV files from their platform to Facebook to run their custom audiences. So just things like that. It's mostly around kind of missed opportunities where they could be selling a lot more tickets, but are just not taking advantage of what they've got available to them.
Yeah, if you can put in the more trial balloons you can put up there, allows you to kind of tap into all the little things that then add up to making the biggest impact.
Totally.
We certainly see that a lot. Like, a lot of people use us for some of the same reasons. Like, just you don't have a big team, so you need to try and automate or make a whole bunch of things a lot more efficient. So can you just talk a little bit about how Audience Republic works? If you're maybe along the journey of an event organizer, they're wondering about how to sell more tickets. How would they be then approaching the value proposition of Audience Republic as part of their kind of event stack, if you want to think of it that way?
Yeah. So we've got two core parts of our platform. So the first part is our event CRM, which is all about helping them connect all their different data sources to bring it all into one place to then actually use that data to help them sell more. So that's the first piece, which I'll talk about. And then the second piece is our campaigns platform, which is all about helping drive ticket sales through the use of word of mouth. So the way the event CRM works is we've got integrations with a bunch of different platforms, whether that is ticketing across physical events like Eventbrite, Universe, virtual events, and so we're adding a whole bunch of virtual events platforms at the moment. One of them, which we've just released, is Zoom, and also other channels as well. So e-commerce, so we've got a Shopify integration, so pulling in, if you've got an online store, pulling in data from Shopify, as well as membership platforms as well. So Patreon, we have integration with as well. And we're definitely seeing those subscription models become really popular for those virtual events, but also for physical events as well. And getting access to both, those virtual events as well as physical events through membership has been a pretty interesting trend which we've seen. But the key thing for us is connecting all those different platforms, and we're not just pulling the contacts, we're actually pulling in all the order transactions, which is the most important thing. So how many tickets people bought to what event, what was the ticket type, when did they buy, all that sort of information. The same thing for virtual events, the same thing for e-commerce, all the e-commerce sales transactions, as well as the membership data. That comes into our platform. We then automatically then create profiles around each individual user, and that allows you to get much closer to your audience around understanding who are the customers who are attending the most events, who are the customers who are spending the most on tickets to your events. And you can also get insights across your entire audience around, who are the top spenders, in your entire audience, who are the most loyal customers. And then the third thing you can do with it is then create segments. So for example, I want to send a message to everybody who spent more than $2,000 on tickets in the last 6 months, or been to at least 3 events in the last 6 months. And then from there, you can then use those segments to reach your audience. And so we've got an all-in-one email platform for you to send emails. It's kind of like MailChimp, but when it used to be much more simple and easier to use. And so that's what we've really kind of focused on and tailored it specifically for event organizers as well. So we've got completely kind of pre-built email templates, and we've got a whole bunch of other ways that we're bringing in our ticketing integrations, both physical and virtual events, to help it be much more easy for those event organizers. And then the kind of final things that I just mentioned, being able to send text messages as well as Facebook messages from the one platform, And then, like I mentioned before, the advertising integrations as well. So automatically syncing those segments. So anytime a ticket sale is made, automatically comes into Eventbrite. Automatically comes from, say, for example, Eventbrite or whichever platform they're integrated with, into Audience Republic, and then out to Facebook or whichever advertising platform that you're using. So that automates the whole process. So that's the.
As you're talking, like, I think especially when with like organizers who are just starting out, every little bit that Audience Republic is focusing are two things. It sounds like one is it's a person, but two, and more importantly, it's a process, and it's a process that could very easily fall down the wayside, but is super critical. So as you're saying, it's picking up these small things. If someone's bought a ticket, Facebook should know. Your ad focus should know. If someone buys a water bottle from your e-commerce store, maybe they're going to be more likely to do X, Y, and Z. I think that's something that I think a lot of people wish that they had. They wish that they had the ability and the time to review the day's receipts, to review where they all are from, to see what brands they're coming from. And at least what I like about the idea of Audience Republic is that you're fundamentally grounding yourself in the data, but you're not just an analytics platform. I think that I think is only half the battle. Everyone's obsessed with data, but they don't necessarily know what to do with it afterwards.
And that's the most important thing. It's actually not just getting the data into the one place. It's how do you actually use it to drive sales.
And you don't need to pay some massive firm to tell you what to do with the data that you're seeing. I think that's super important. I also think it's interesting that your background's in in-person events, but especially over the last, obviously, 18 months, things have changed, and there's been some quite serious changes in terms of what people might be willing to consider, but also the types of data that are available. I imagine things have been pretty interesting from your perspective, but do you find, like, I think there's this perennial debate, at least so far, in-person events versus virtual events versus hybrid. Are they different? Are they different sides of the same coin? Are they very different things? Do you think that an approach for one shouldn't be like a blanket approach for one isn't appropriate for the other? What is your kind of experience say, and what have you guys seen over the past 18 months?
Yeah, well, I think that, there's this kind of phrase like hybrid events that's kind of been floating around. And I personally don't think hybrid events work at all. I think what makes a great physical event is very different than what makes a great virtual and online event. And it's, very hard to optimize for both. Some platforms and some types of events may be a little bit better suited. But for example, if you're talking about a music event, for example, it just doesn't work. When it comes to it's not the same thing. Watching a live streamed concert, it's great, but it's really a completely different experience. Yeah. But the ones that have done it really well have actually turned it into something which is specifically designed for the platform. And so one example was Billie Eilish that we saw, where that live stream event, I wouldn't call it a live stream concert. It was actually more of a combination of a concert and a music video kind of combined into a virtual experience. That I think is super exciting. And so I think the whole kind of concept of a hybrid event, I think the events that are going to do really well are actually going to be specifically designed to be virtual or for physical. It's very hard to kind of design for both, even for conferences. It's I think the most successful virtual conferences are not going to be just a live stream of a keynote or anything like that. So look, I think there's still a lot of work to be done on virtual events and things like that. And I think even still everybody's kind of figuring it out, but there's a lot of great platforms coming out. I mean, just like your platform, and I think there's going to be a lot more innovation to be done, and we'll see what's ahead.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I think a lot of certainly event organizers that talk to us, they maybe are are obsessed with or worried about providing the same level of experience to people who can come and who can't come, or maybe they have stakeholders that are like, we need the exact same offering. And I think that as soon as you can maybe separate yourself from that and get back to basics and understand like who is your attendee, and realize that you might have, if you have to plan a virtual or a hybrid event, think of them as two different ones that are happening at the same time. Make sure you don't have to include your virtual audience in everything physical. You don't have to include your physical audience in everything virtual. And I think that if you can open up a little bit about that, then you can understand like the attendee mechanics in terms of how they actually differ for those different audiences and for those different motivations, and lean into that rather than trying to pretend that they don't exist. And I think you're right in terms of like, I don't subscribe to this whole every single event's going to have to be a hybrid event. I don't think that's true. Going both ways. I just think that maybe you're going to see a blend in terms of like an in-person event happening once a year, but then throughout the year, maybe you're going to have smaller virtual events that lead up, like, take advantage of the mechanics that are already there.
Totally. And that's what we're seeing, I think, those subscription models where events are almost turning into subscription business models, where, like you said, communities, where you're not just paying to attend an event, you're paying to be part of a community, and you get access to not just the physical events, not just the live stream events, but maybe there's also additional things. And I think the thing that's really exciting about virtual events is the fact that, you've got that kind of community piece. It seems like virtual events, are really good at, I think the opportunity is around meeting new people rather than, focusing around content consumption, which with the internet, there's so much competition when it comes to content consumption. A live stream keynote, or you could probably watch the same content on YouTube. So I think the thing that's really exciting to me about the virtual events is actually the meeting new people aspect of it. And I think that's the, if I'm thinking about what can virtual events do that no other kind of type of medium can do, I think that's the exciting thing for me, at least, that the aspect and the idea of actually meeting new people within those communities.
Yeah, and also just mixing and matching using the right formats for the right use case. And I think that's just in the same way that your in-person events, you have different venues of different sizes and different layouts. I think not thinking that you have to do everything on Zoom, but also not thinking that you have to do something not on Zoom if Zoom is the right tool for you. Don't overthink it. Thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today, and also thanks for staying on a little bit late in your day. I believe, I'm not sure, it's almost over for you.
Yeah, it's not too late. It's not too late. Yeah. So no, it was great to meet you and great to be on the show.
Thanks very much. If you'd like to connect with Jared, anyone out there, you can connect on LinkedIn, or you can find him on Twitter at Jared Christensen. That's Christensen with a K. And you can also find out more about Audience Republic by visiting www.audiencerepublic.com. Thanks again, Jared.